This podcast is produced by Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency. The Collective Us, an NMCAA podcast, focuses on inspiring you through stories of those we've helped through our programming or by linking local resources to community members in need. Join us as we learn about the programs offered through NMCAA and how we touch people's lives every day. Welcome back to The Collective Us. I'm Erica Austin, and this is my co-host, Ryan Buck.
Hello, Erica. It's good to be back in the studio with you. I think there's some news maybe you want to share. Do you mind?
Absolutely. Thank you. I am so excited to be back from maternity leave. No, our listeners didn't really know, but all the podcasts prior to this, I have been carrying twins. And so on August 31st, I had my babies, and they are perfect little additions to our family. So I'm officially a mom of 4 kids under the age of 5.
Congratulations.
Yes, absolutely. Congratulations.
Well, yeah, I am glad that everybody is healthy and beautiful and stunning.
Yes.
And it's good to have you back.
Thank you.
And I don't know, we'll see what this does to you seem the same. You seem just the same. Nothing is different.
I mean, other than a little more chaos at home,
okay.
I'm here. I'm happy. We're thriving. So
that is awesome. Well, let's get into it. Our guests today are Norika, Kida, Betti, Early Childhood System Coordinator at United Way, Northwest Michigan, and Robin Hornkohl, Northwest Education Services Great Start Collaborative Coordinator. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, we're very, very happy to have you.
Thanks for being here. As Ryan said, I'm so excited to have you here today and to bring awareness to this initiative. As a working mom of young children, I sure know the struggle that comes along with finding quality childcare and, of course, the worries and frustrations that can come along with it as well. So let's get started. In preparing for this episode, you guys worked together to tell me kind of what Childcare Now Initiative is about. And so you said it's an initiative of the Great Start Collaborative of Traverse Bay that seeks to unite the efforts of parents, providers, employers, and community advocates to improve the availability, affordability, and quality of childcare, preschool, and other early learning experiences for young children ages 0 to 5 and their families. Under shared leadership by the United Way of Northwest Michigan, Northwest Education Services, Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency, and Traverse Connect, the model was designed with participation by parents of young children, child care providers, regional employers, and dozens of other community leaders and stakeholders. The initiative has 7 action teams working to develop and implement solutions to expand the early care and learning workforce, enhance child care capacity, and build overall system support. That's a lot.
It is a lot.
So I guess let's break it down. First, I want to start with, we mentioned your titles when Ryan introduced you. So let's identify what some of these services are. So can you tell us what Northwest Education Services are? The Great Start Collaborative, Strong Beginnings, United Way of Northwest Michigan. So let's start there. Jump in wherever you feel like you want to start.
Robin, do you want to start with the Northwest Ed side of things?
I'll speak kind of globally. Northwest Education Services is one of our intermediate school districts in the state that supports local education providers, like our local public schools, our private schools, our community schools. And within that, there's different work that North Ed does. And my work with the Great Start Collaborative in particular is supporting community engagement around early childhood specifically. So working toward, making sure all children are born healthy and ready to succeed in life, that families have what they need to, whatever that means from their lens, to be able to parent and take care of their kiddos. And that early childhood, childcare is a part of that, but that raising children is a really complex opportunity. As parents, we face issues as we're parenting. So bringing the community together to look at the community opportunities that we have available for families and young children is the work of the collaborative.
Then, of course, everyone knows United Way, but in particular, how is that United Way tied to the collaborative the collaborative and then the Childcare Now Initiative?
Yeah, so United Way of Northwest Michigan, does a lot of things in the community and is very involved in early childhood in our region. And so through Childcare Now, United Way's role in that, one is, I'm the early childhood system coordinator. That's just kind of a title that was developed for me. But part of what I do in that role is to help coordinate this Childcare Now initiative, kind of help keep things moving forward and keep all the pieces together. And so, United Way's role is me in part, but then also there are a number of other people within United Way, as well as kind of like helping to create a space where people can convene and, connecting the dots as well. So I guess that for Childcare Now, that's kind of how I see United Ways.
Okay. Are there other similar organizations, like I mentioned, Strong Beginnings? I'm not even sure what some of these are myself. Are there other similar organizations or programs that our listeners should know about as we're talking about this issue today?
There absolutely are. I think what's most important to know about this initiative is that it's not one entity or one person's problem to solve, that this really is a community dilemma around childcare, having quality childcare available. So we have partners within Childcare Now from all sectors, through the business community, through private community members. We have parents. We have faith-based organizations. It really is important, I think, for this work in particular, that this is not just you need to find childcare. Oh, parents will, right? Childcare is limited, as we know, and finding quality is really important. So there's a lot of complex sort of dynamics at play when we think about this. And that's why it's really a community collaboration, which is hard to wrap your arms around sometimes when you think about, right, what collaboration really means.
Just the intro alone, the guests and listeners may want to go back and listen to that, maybe slow down a little bit. But the idea, and that's a consistent on the show and with NMCAA, is it's taking a lot of people working together and coordinating huge efforts with a noble end, which is this opportunity, as you said, but then there are issues. It is complex because there are a lot of different areas to weigh in on that. But your group held an event a couple of months ago, and Missy Smith, family liaison for Strong Beginnings preschool program and Great Start Collaborative, interviewed some of those parents, providers, and community leaders. The main question being, what does great look like in childcare to kids and families in our region? Today, we'd like to hear some of those answers and get your response.
And what would be great is if a parent decides, I would like care for my kids so I can go to school or work, or for whatever reason, that they would know where they could reach out for help. They could talk to a kind person who would say, you've got all kinds of options. What are you looking for? Do you want to be in a home setting? Do you want to be in a center? Whatever they came back with, there would be choices, and they would all be affordable and they would all be great.
So there's a lot there. And it's interesting, that quality is a topic that comes up, but what's the first initial reaction to those words?
I guess what I was thinking is we have some pieces of that right now, for sure. There are resources in the community where parents can reach out and have someone who they can talk with and talk through what types of care they're looking for. Like the Great Start Quality Northwest Resource Center has people who can help. So there's some of that there. Some of that infrastructure exists. And then as I kept listening to that comment, what I was thinking is at some point it gets more challenging because there would be lots of options to choose from, and it would be easy and it would be great. That's the piece where we don't always have lots of options to choose from. And that's the part that we're really focused on, is how do we create more options that are high quality.
When two options are mentioned at this point, a home setting, a center, what other options do you think are being looked at or asked about? Are there other options? Is just more options within those two areas?
I mean, there could be other options. I think some people also might want to consider having their children home with them. I think that's a care option. We maybe don't think about it that way, but it is.
Sure.
But also having more options within those categories, I think that's the biggest challenge. We have home, we have center-based, but we just don't have a lot of choices with openings or any choices with openings sometimes.
Okay. And would you say right now this is an accurate depiction of what Child Caring Now is working towards in general, or at least in the areas that you can?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that is one of our big goals, is to increase the capacity, increase the number of available openings for kids, especially for infants. We have an even greater shortage for infants, as you probably know. And ensuring that, those options are high quality is another really big piece of that, and affordable.
Yeah.
So to get into the exciting stuff, what are you doing to make some of these things a reality? Anything you can share?
Yeah, I was just thinking about another piece of the work that Child Caring Now is working on is supporting existing providers, caregivers that are doing the hard work every single day. It is a job that is heart work and hard work at the same time. You're taking people's babies into your home and providing them opportunities to learn and grow, right? Having safe environments, having quality connections, understanding that child as an individual, unique human, and within the context of their family. It's a big, big job. And so some of the work that Child Caring Now is just supporting that educator, that provider who's doing that work. And one of the examples is through the substitute provider pool. So in education, typical kind of K-12 education, there's opportunities for substitutes. If a teacher is out sick or unavailable or has an appointment, wants to take a vacation, there might be opportunities for a substitute. And when you are running your own center or a home-based care, you're it often. And so there isn't that opportunity. So I think it's really a multifaceted, multi-layer approach. And there isn't one simple answer. And the group, the 7 action teams that are convening to look at the whole system of the Child Caring Now focus are really looking at all of those different parts and pieces.
But even a small step forward is still a step forward. So as you said, a lot of different opportunities, and a solution is still a positive step forward. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we know that NMCAA is deeply rooted in the child caring community with our Head Start, early Head Start programs, and GSRP. So if you would, how would NMCAA help move the Child Caring Now initiative forward? What are some of your thoughts on that?
I guess I'll start out by saying NMCAA is heavily involved with Child Caring Now already, with some leadership roles in the action teams and elsewhere, and really provides a lot of wonderful kind of knowledge and expertise about Head Start and a great model. And so we lean on folks from NMCAA a lot to kind of provide insight in, like, how do things work in Head Start?
Yeah.
What can we borrow from this model to think about the system broadly?
That's great to know. That we can help provide some of that information for the initiative. Being that, I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys, my son is in the GSRP program. And as I mentioned, I just had twins, so now I have 4 children. So I'm paying quite a pretty penny for childcare, but having him in that GSRP program is really helpful to have one less child to pay for full time. But then there's other issues that arise, like he now only needs part-time care. He needs Fridays because we don't have school on Fridays, or after school care. Is that something that you guys are working on also, as they're in that 0 to 5 group, but they're starting to get to that childhood group where they're in school? Is that something that the initiative is looking at as well?
Yeah, I think we are really trying to look at the whole system, and that definitely includes, what about kids who are in preschool part of the time but need that Friday care, or summer care is a huge challenge,
that too.
Especially for that preschool age where there's not a lot of care options. Like summer camps don't often cover littler kids. And so what do you do in the summer? What do you do on Fridays?
Yeah.
So that's definitely part of what we're thinking about when we think about the early care and learning system in our region, and how does it all fit together? How can we maybe think about, is there a way for GSRP to have more coverage or to braid with something else that would cover Fridays? Yeah, those are definitely all things that are
I was
top
very
of mind.
excited when he got into GSRP. I'm like, all right, let's, but then I was like, wait a minute. Now I need somebody to pick him up after school, or who's he going to go to until myself or my husband get home? And, oh, wait, what about Fridays? What if there's a snow day? It's all things that parents think about, but you don't think about it until you're in it and you're like, oh, crap. Then you're in like crisis mode. Like, who's going to pick up my kid? Who's going to care for them while I'm at work? So,
absolutely. And then you're living in a state of stress.
Yes.
Thinking about it and worrying.
Yeah.
And if one part of the plan doesn't go as planned, right, then what?
Yeah,
So,
right now I'm kind of in that, don't forget you're picking up my son. Don't forget you're picking up my son. Because I just don't want him to get lost in the shuffle of chaos in life. So,
and that's a lot of work. That's like an extra job that you as a
It
parent
is.
have to do just to coordinate all those pieces. So
Unpaid,
right.
typically.
Right,
Yeah.
on top of your regular full-time work.
And
often.
it's hard to multitask, but when your basic needs aren't being fulfilled in a way, or you're devoting RAM to that one thing constantly, it's tough to perform.
Yeah.
And you're just made to do more and more and more. And even in a small town, in a smaller community, I come from a big city, it's still hard, and sometimes harder in a small town, to just navigate your life and what you need to do to raise your children as healthy as they can be.
Yeah. So I want to take a time out for just a second to recognize a few NMCAA employees who are celebrating career milestone achievements. In December, we have a handful of employees celebrating 5 years. We have Chelsea Crawford.
Amy DeZoo.
And then Nicole Pishner. They are celebrating 5 years. And then we also have at 10 years, Robin Varney is celebrating as well. So just wanted to shout them out and tell them thank you so much for their hard work, and I appreciate all the things you're doing.
I love that segment.
I
It's
know
really it's a difference maker, that longevity. So let's get to the next response, to what great means for childcare for kids and families in our region.
For the 0 to 1 stage, it just makes so much more sense to be with the parents. For as far as I understand, childcare providers are more limited in the number of infants that they can have. So you solve that problem.
Yeah, right.
It's just like, so if you let the parents care for the kids, for that early stage, then you increase capacity in the childcare providers that we already have.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's true. If there were better parental leave, could also fill some gaps, or
But
allow for
it would create
some space for those who don't
capacity.
get the.
that is the dream, right? that as I think as a country, right, we have not prioritized the critical role of parenting in a way. I know that we have created some policies and funding to support parents, and yet that level of support to allow parents, right, to stay home for that first year of development. I agree. That's great. And we want it to be flexible, because sometimes that's not realistic for everybody, the staying home. So I think it would be wonderful, and always thinking about how do we remain flexible to meet the needs of individual families.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've said before on this show, I was a stay-at-home mom for 4 years before coming back to work and taking on this role as marketing manager for NMCAA. And it was so nice to be able to do that. And I'm so appreciative that I had the opportunity to do that. And now, so going from, my 4-year-old, I was home with him, and now I have the 2 newborns now. It's like, it's a totally different ball game taking your kids to, being that they are twins. They were so little. They were 8 pounds when I dropped them off at daycare for the first time, And so it's really hard. And I understand I got lucky that I had a daycare already in place and that they were able to save some spaces for me. But I know that wait list is also very long if you don't have a daycare provider. So, it
and
really
is the size
is.
of that daycare a factor? Well, if you had a daycare and you were dropping off your twins and there were 90 other twins, and there's still enough staff, but
that's where the
is
quality
size,
of care
and then,
comes in.
what is happening
Yeah.
within
I think
it.
that is the quality piece of it, right? And they're a great start to quality. The Resource Center is one of those entities that supports quality improvement in childcare, right? Partnerships with NMCAA. I would just want to say some of the best staff are in early childhood work at NMCAA. They're incredible, hardworking individuals. There's support from Northwest Education Services in some ways to support quality pieces. And how do we ensure quality? And sometimes a large center is the right fit for somebody. Sometimes it's a home provider that's the right fit for a family. I think that's where that individual need. And sometimes parents do want to be able to stay home. And right now, that's not an option for everybody, right? It depends on your financial situation. It depends on a lot of factors about what those options look like for you.
Yeah. So let's do another response. Here's another take on what greatness in childcare could mean for families in our communities.
From an employer's perspective, it's having flexible leave time for families so that they can address when their children are sick or they want to be there at a school activity. It is, looking creatively at how can they support childcare. Perhaps they have room to have a childcare on their site. Perhaps they can help subsidize it financially for families. But everyone has an opportunity to help families with young children be healthier.
That's a big one.
Yeah, that makes me think about a couple things. One is we have an action team that is working on that kind of employer piece and trying to help employers think about how they could be supportive, whether that is opening an on-site childcare, which would be a really big undertaking. That's kind of one end of the spectrum, or maybe just allowing flexibility. That would be a much easier lift kind of on the other side of things. But there are a lot of things that employers can do to support their families. And, like you were saying, Ryan, if you're at work and part of your mind is thinking about kids because you don't have care, you're thinking about, okay, I got to do this and this and this to make sure my child's picked up. You're not as present at work. And so that's a piece of...
As an employer, you could look at as an investment in your talent or your team.
Definitely.
From that perspective. And I did work for an employer that had on-site childcare, and it was in hospitality, but it also could generate revenue, and that's an opportunity. But there's a lot that goes along with that, and maybe it's a bigger issue on how employers could get support as well, because a lot of it comes down to financially. And again, people who have to travel for work also having to travel with their kids for some reason. Now you're in a new state or a new place in a new city, and you don't know what to do as well. So it's something that can follow you. Forgive me. Just got lost. If someone were interested in learning more about the Childcare Now Initiative or would like to get involved, where could they find out more?
Yeah, so we do have a website. It's childcaringnow.org. The other option would be to reach out by email to me. I'm usually kind of the first point of contact, and then I help get people connected to wherever else they need to be. And so my email address is just my first name, Norika, Norika, at United Way, NWMI for Northwest Michigan.org. And I'm happy to loop people in.
And people are always welcome to participate and be a part of the conversation, whether it's through one of the action teams. There are quarterly meetings for Childcare Now where we convene and bring the community together to talk about this. It is about taking action, and it's about understanding it and hearing from the perspectives of all of the different members of the group, of our community, because this impacts you differently depending on your role in the community too. And it really is about offering quality care options for our youngest citizens, which are our babies and our kids.
Yeah, and our future.
So the initiative, I know obviously there's the people who are like yourselves, who are the specialists or experts or gurus, however you want to say it, on the issue. And then there's providers also included in this group, and also parents. So really anybody could just reach out and be like, hey, I want to attend? Do you guys have like meetings? Is that what the action groups are?
The action teams are working on specific elements within Childcare Now. And then the larger group meeting is a convening of our folks from action teams and our community members as well. So when I say community, I really do mean it's all of us here, right? Yeah. It's a retired person who's living in Traverse City who wants to be involved and cares about young children. Yeah. It's a business member who might want to learn more or might have solutions that they've tried. It really is about supporting community conversation around this and identifying the resources and a collective kind of unified way or approach of moving forward to address this very complex issue.
Mm-hmm. I just recently had an instance where, of course, a lot of childcare now is you prepay. And I don't know if it's always been that way, but, you prepay for the week. And so one of my kids got sick. They couldn't go to daycare. Inevitably, the next kid got sick and the next kid's. So I'm paying for my kids to go to daycare, but then they don't go. And then I'm staying home and potentially working from home, but not being 100% there, like you mentioned. And so I'm kind of working, but not really working and not giving 100% to my kids because they're, sick on the couch. But then is that another issue? That's pretty common, I would assume, right? Is that something that you talk about? Or I feel like I'm sitting here so frustrated. I talked to Ryan about this actually just last week when we were in pre-production, and I'm like, I'm so frustrated. I'm sure other parents feel the same way. I feel like I'm just flushing money down the toilet because I'm like, I'm not working, but I'm paying for daycare. So I don't know if there's something to add to that or not, or maybe I'm just venting, but
it is a part of that's the reality of the system that we're living and working in, where our childcare, they operate as businesses. They're small businesses. They're a part of our business community. And we rely mostly on parents to cover those costs, right? So it's a tension that we're constantly, you are not just venting. It's one of the realities.
And I do care for, I love my daycare.
Absolutely.
I think, I want to make sure that she's paid and all of her employees are paid. But I'm also
definitely.
like,
but the reality is right. It's a financial stressor.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are, I don't know, with 4 children, that's a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah.
Housing is expensive, right? There's so many things. And it's not that, of course, you want to see your childcare provider thrive and do well and see that as a gift. And it's an impact on your family. It is one of the pieces.
Yeah. What are the questions that people should be asking if they want to help? What are the healthy questions to ask, and where are the places to go to get the right information? Or what are the questions people aren't asking?
Yeah, I think a good first question that anyone could ask might be, how can I be supportive? How can I get involved? What role do I have as a community member in the early care and learning system? And then from there, of course, they can always get involved with Childcare Now and contact us, and we can help them try to answer that question and plug them in wherever they might fit best.
Right.
I think for me, it is that how might I be a part of the solution? How might I become more aware of what's existing, and how might I contribute to that?
Right. And contributing doesn't just always, money's always helpful, but if anybody's stopped by, I just don't have millions to spare, there are other ways to support in
Most
kind.
Definitely,
and
yes. I think that is
intellectually.
where, getting involved, always welcome through Childcare Now, through the action teams. If somebody does have millions of dollars they'd like to contribute, we are.
Sure, yeah.
Yes.
Just dropping that little hint there.
There isn't one answer. That's the tricky part, that it really is a conversation about what are the gifts that you might bring to the table? What are the gifts that we might not even be aware of in our community? How do we leverage those in smarter ways? How can we be a little more adaptive and flexible?
Right.
I know that's not it. Again, it sounds like a very vague answer, but it really is dynamic. And there are really clear actionable things that are being taken, but there's always room for thinking about things differently. That's the beauty of collaboration and holding multiple perspectives.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Interesting. Just childcare can be innovative. You think that there are certain things that shouldn't change. Not that anybody's out to change anything, but the fact that adapting is part of what we have to do. And sometimes I'd rather be adaptable than smart.
on
on certain days.
If everything was perfect, then we wouldn't be here, right?
Right.
Like the system is stressed in many ways. And so we need new ideas and approaches and new collaborations. And we need everyone to really be part of the solution.
Wonderful. And talking about it in a healthy way is important. So you do see that is helpful as well. And that can get into the right eyes and ears at times.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's some of the great stuff that happens at those larger Child Caring Now meetings is just the connections that are made. People who wouldn't otherwise be in the same space talking about childcare, whether it's a business person and a provider who connect about something, and that sparks a ripple effect over here, or a parent and, someone who works in early care and learning. And so there's those kind of organic connections that happen at those Child Caring Now meetings, I really think are, a big part of what the initiative does. And it's hard to put your finger on those sometimes or quantify them, but that's part of the magic that happens there.
Yeah. I was just looking here. I have another quote that I would like you to respond to. And so this one says,
well, I would say great would look like every child has what they need through collaboration and a supportive community, that every parent would have the resources they need to do the best they can to raise their children. Great would mean childcare would be affordable and attainable for all.
Yes.
Great would mean that all of the young children that go through our programming would get the skill sets that they would need, both from an emotional standpoint, but also in a kindergarten-ready standpoint, so that they can enter school at the level necessary for them to be successful and reach their full potential.
So with that being said, that one really is interesting to me because it's talking about, obviously, the collaboration that we've been talking about, supportive community, which, listening to some of these as I was in preparation for this podcast, many of them were talking about community, as you guys have also here today. But the interesting thing to me here is the emotional standpoint, skill set, and also kindergarten readiness. So is that where part of the quality childcare comes in terms of, like, you're not just caring and making sure that they have a dry diaper or that they've been fed, but also teaching them skills along the way, and maybe potentially reading to them and reading the books, or, things like that. Can you expand upon that a little bit?
I think those are the elements of quality. There is learning that happens when babies are getting their diapers changed, right? There is relationship that's happening. There's connection. Our children, as humans, we require relational connection. That attachment is so critical. And that does happen through those everyday interactions. And through those, the skills are built upon each other, right? They start from just eye connection, right? Or eye contact, or cooing back and forth, that give and take, that serve and return that we do sort of naturally with babies. And those are the foundational pieces that allow kindergarten readiness. I always am cautious about that term, kindergarten readiness. I know it feels concrete and important.
Yeah.
And we don't make kids ready, right? Like, it's not our job to form a child and make them learn all this stuff to be ready for school. It is about looking at the whole child. And I know I can sound a little bit like an early childhood zealot here, so I'll be careful. And schools being ready for kids wherever they are, because there isn't necessarily a checkbox, you're ready for kindergarten. This is, how am I, as an organization, if I'm offering kindergarten, open and accepting of this child and their experiences, right? As I meant, raising children, being a human is very complex. There are sort of typical developmental milestones that we make, and we're all different depending on our experiences. And that's really the beauty of being human. Yeah. And so I always want to be careful with thinking about that kindergarten readiness of, like, this is about honoring the child as a whole person, no matter how old they are. All right, I'll stop now. Sorry.
No, you're right.
I could have heard more. That was really, really well said and very inspiring.
I remember when I believe it was Drew O'Connor we had on, she was talking about how our NMCAA Head Start and GSRP programs don't have a checklist of what they need for you to begin their programs. You don't have to be potty trained. You don't have to be, I mean, obviously kindergarten, that's a little different maybe, but you don't have to, know your ABCs or 1, 2, 3s, things like that. And it was really meeting the child where they are, which is, I think, one of the great things about the NMCAA programs. I think that's a great thing to know, like childcare should be, meeting the child where they are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great point.
And
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's the beauty of our providers, that they get that, right?
Mhm.
As early learning and caregivers, they really understand the importance of that relationship and the attachment, and that when a family brings their baby or their kiddo to them, when I say baby, I mean universally a young child, right,
young
in
child,
childcare,
yes.
that they're being entrusted with somebody's child, that is an honor and a gift and a responsibility. That
that's the heart part.
Yeah, it is
Frankly,
the hard
I'm
part.
glad anybody does it.
Yeah.
Amen.
It's a wonderful,
I've
because
said
it's just,
it.
as you say it, I'm like, no, thank you. It would not be my
I've
business.
said it before on this podcast as well. Like, kudos to all of those people who
all strength.
share, do the childcare, because I love my kids, but I don't want to be with them all day long.
A lot of love there.
Right. And I think, that's another thing that we at Childcare Now as an initiative really want to make sure we are elevating the profession of caring for young children.
Absolutely.
Because it is very challenging. It takes a lot of skill. And as we know, it's poorly paid. It's horribly underpaid.
Yes.
And so that's something that we need to fix. But part of that is just recognizing that this is one of the hardest jobs there is,
I
and
think
most important.
Another thing, and maybe I'm wrong because I am a young parent to young children, not that I'm young, but, learning child development as a parent, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was, something. And, learning how to talk to them because their brains are going through this change, or they have these sleep regressions and these are all things that I didn't know about before I had children. And so having those people who are those professionals and they know those things and they can get down on the child's level and talk to them in a caring way and respect what they're saying. Even when they're 3, they can do those
Calm
things.
you down.
Calm you down. And yes, they are not paid enough. You're 100% correct. They, and I wish that there was more teaching to the community, like child development. It needs to be more widespread.
Absolutely.
At least that's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, this is where it starts.
Yeah.
Hear it here.
Yeah. So before we wrap things up today, I want to see if there's ways to donate. We already talked about possibly volunteering or being a part of this initiative. Is there a way to donate to the initiative? And is it on the website?
I don't believe it's on the website, but anyone could get in touch with us, with me, and we could make that happen for sure. At the moment, United Way kind of is serving as the fiscal organization for Childcare Now.
Yeah, kind of where it started.
Well, not
started, but it's the...
we're holding the funding for it, but it really is a collaborative, multi-organization initiative that really embraces the community.
Contact to reach out to if there was somebody who would like to donate towards this. Okay. And before we wrap things up today, again, I wanted to just mention how it was really shining through while I was preparing for this podcast, the community aspect of all those people who we interviewed back in August, I think it was. And so thank you to all those people who met with Missy and gave their 2 cents on the greatness of child caring and what we want it to look like in our region. But I have a hard-hitting question for both of you. If you had one wish for the Childcare Now Initiative, what would it be and why? It doesn't have to be practical or...
Yeah, real or imagined. You don't have to commit to it either. This is just for fun.
No, right outside, it would be wonderful to be fully funded to be able to do this. That would always be the number one wish. And I really am a believer in trusting the power of people coming together. So my wish is that the folks around the table and others feel inspired to recognize that we really are making a difference, given the situation that we have. While we would love quick fixes and there are actionable things that are happening, some of this change that we're asking, right? Like that all parents have understanding of child development or right quality care.
Yeah.
A fully funded early childhood system. Those things take time given our country, our culture, where we are, how we value early childhood. So I think for me, the wish is that we continue to come together and celebrate the work and honor the differences that we all might bring and the importance of bringing those to the table to address these complex issues.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do you have a wish?
I don't know if I can top that. But I think, similarly, I think, like Robin said, of course, if we could get funding to do all of the things that we've talked about doing, that would be great. But beyond that, I think my wish is that we keep working together and we keep thinking about how we can work together better and how we can bring in new voices and new energy into the initiative to keep things moving forward as we learn and move along the way.
Practical wishes.
Yeah.
I don't think there's been many we should go back.
Yeah.
There's been a few doozies.
We're pretty practical in early childhood.
That's
really,
a theme.
that
And
is
you know
the
what? It is, if I may, it is absolutely okay to say funding because that's a consistent too. So when we continue to ask people, what's your number one wish? And funding comes up and maybe, people like trends. So maybe that's a trend that people can understand. Robin and Norika, thank you so much again for joining us today. Thank you for the work and the passion that you bring to it. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us and chat with us and make this part of your day.
Yes, thank you so much. Don't forget, we'd like to share your community stories regarding NMCAA. If you have a story you'd like to share about how NMCAA has impacted your life, send us an email at collectiveuspodcast@nmcaa.net. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please hit the like, follow, or share button. It truly helps us continue to get the word out on all the good NMCAA does in our community. And if you would like to learn more about Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency or the programs we offer, or would like to make a donation, we encourage you to reach out at 231-947-3780 or visit our website, nmcaa.net. And to our listeners today, we encourage you to continue to strive each day to do something to help yourself or your neighbors.